So we have two piles of precious metals in front of us, and these two piles have something in common that I think is very important. So if you are wondering what that is, I hope that you stick with us so you can find out. But what we have here, just to kind of be very clear, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1-ounce silver buffalo rounds. And on this side, we have a 1/4 ounce gold Cougarand and a 1/2 ounce gold Eagle for 0.75 or 3/4 of an ounce of silver. Now, you guys know that the gold to silver ratio, or you probably do, is around 80 to 1, which would mean for us to have the same value of silver as we do in this gold, we would need 60 ounces of silver. Clearly, that's not what we have, but we have something that correlates that I think is even more important. But before we tell you, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you are subscribed. It's free and easy, and I definitely appreciate it. Also, I want to tell you about our monthly swag pack that we are giving away along with SD Bullion, which includes a 1-ounce silver round, along with an SD Bullion polo and an SD Bullion tumbler. So if you haven't seen that giveaway yet, I will put a link down below. Make sure you click the link for more details. But like I said, these two things have a lot in common, and what these represent is how much silver you could give every single living person on Earth if you were to take all of the silver ever discovered and split it up between every person alive. So in other words, there are 7.888 billion people on Earth, according to Google. I just Googled it this morning. And according to the United States Geological Survey, there's only ever been 1.74 million metric tons of silver ever discovered. Now, if you were to take that number and multiply it by 32,150, you come up with 55,941,000,000 ounces of silver. Divide that by the number of people on Earth, and that comes out to roughly 7 ounces of silver per person. Now, as you can probably imagine at this point, we are looking at the same with gold. So according to the USGS, there has only ever been 187,000 metric tons of gold ever produced. If you multiply that by 32,150, that comes out to just over 6 billion ounces, which leaves each person on Earth, if you were to divide up all the gold between every single living person, 3/4 of an ounce of gold. So, like I said, this is not the gold to silver ratio, is it? The gold to silver ratio is 60 to 1. So, if you want to talk about value, we're going to talk about two things in today's video in relation to these numbers. But if you want to talk about just overall value in US dollars, if that's what's important to you, keep in mind, like I said, for us to get to the same gold to silver ratio, we would actually need, like what the gold to silver ratio is today, we would actually need 60 ounces of silver to equal the same value. Yet, if you divide up all the silver and all the gold, each person only gets 7 ounces and 3/4 of an ounce. Yet it takes 60 ounces of silver to equal the same amount of 3/4 of an ounce of gold. So that leads me to think, and this is the first point we're going to get into, about what I would actually want if we were to ever to get back to either historic ratios of 25, 30 to 1, or the real physical ratio of 7 to 1. In US dollars, the value of silver would either have to go way up, or the value of gold would have to go way down for us to get back to that ratio, or to that 7 to 1 ratio, or back to the historic ratio. Either way, gold would have to go way down, or silver would have to go way up. Now, if you believe that eventually we are going to get back to that ratio, what would you rather have? Because in that case, in other words, if gold goes down or if silver goes up, either way, having silver is better to have. Again, that's if we're going to get back to that ratio. I'm not saying that we are, and I'm certainly not FOMOing you into saying, oh my God, buy silver, it's really undervalued. I think that buying silver has a more fundamental purpose than worrying about US dollars, and so that is not generally what I talk about on this channel, but I did want to share that for anyone that was wondering about just flat out value. Now, if you want to talk about what I think is even more important when it comes to gold and silver, that is having it in the case of an emergency. Now, I already just said I'm not a FOMO guy, and I'm not trying to get people to freak out and go out and buy a bunch of silver. But if we were to ever be in a situation where our dollar collapses, this is what's probably going to end up being bartered after the smoke clears. Now, I have to emphasize after the smoke clears, because let me be honest with you. If we were to wake up tomorrow and our dollar lost its status as the world's reserve currency and the value of it plummeted to like 10% of what it is right now, this is not going to be very important. It will eventually be important, don't get me wrong. But food, water, the ability to defend yourself and your family, survival skills, so on and so forth, going to be way more important. Gold and silver will really, and this is all my opinion, this will really not come into play until months later when all the dust has settled and people are starting to get back to some sort of normal civility. And at that point, we are actually bartering using gold and silver as real money like it always should be and always should have been, instead of fighting each other. And that's to say if we ever even get to that point. And keep in mind, I actually don't think, I've actually said this before, I'm not going to cover the topic, but I'll just say it again. I don't ever want to get to that point. I don't think we're actually going to get to that point anytime soon. And I did say anytime soon, because who knows what's going to happen in 50 or 100 years or 10, I don't know. But anyway, my point is I don't think we're actually going to, get to that point anytime soon. So I think it's more important to have it just in case I'm wrong. And that's why I like to put gold and silver aside. In case I'm wrong, I want to have it, but I hope that we never get there. And I hope that I just die with a bunch of silver that goes to my kids and they can fight over it. I've said this before. So let's talk about if people were to wake up and stack silver. Let me talk about how many people stack silver today. Now, keep in mind, this number is not exact. It's certainly just an estimation based on what I have seen. But if you let's just look at silver stacking from YouTube, okay? On a YouTube perspective. There's some silver channels out there that have more subscribers than me for sure. I have 120,000. That's a lot of people. And thank you, by the way, for being one of those subscribers. But there are certainly silver channels out there that have more than me. But I don't think there's a single silver channel that even has 1 million subscribers. Now look at Mr. Beast with over 100 million. Look at, tech channels with tens of millions, Marcus Brownlee, Linus Tech Tips, etc. These guys have way more people interested in what they're doing than gold and silver stackers. And keep in mind, that's not me being jealous or salty about it. And I don't care. That's great. But my point is it goes to show you how few people are actually interested in gold and silver. So if I were to just kind of think about how many people are actually interested in gold and silver, I would say in the US alone, maybe a couple of percent, maybe 3 or 4, but I don't even think it's that high. Now, let's imagine that every single person wakes up and they realize that gold and silver is important and they start wanting to put some gold and silver aside. Let's say 20% of the US starts to stack silver. Do you think premiums are high now or demand is high now? Man, it would be crazy. You would not be able to find silver because, again, there's not as much silver out there as you think that there is. Now, granted, 55, almost 56 billion ounces of silver is a lot of silver, but there are a lot of people on Earth. And all of those 56 billion ounces of silver, not anywhere near all of them are even in the US, not even close. So let's imagine that silver is evenly distributed across the world, and let's say 20% of people in the US. So let's say every single country has the exact amount of 7 ounces of silver for every resident that they have. Let's say that 20% of US citizens, and that's, so obviously kids aren't going to be stacking silver. Some people will be stacking for the family, but let's just say 20% of people are interested in stacking silver. What does that leave us with? Well, it leaves us with 35 ounces per person. How many of you watching this right now have more than 35 ounces? I imagine it's more than you think. And so even if 20% of the people in the US right now stack silver and all that silver was evenly distributed between all countries, would still just be 35%. Now, I personally think that there's probably more than that, but it's not going to be a whole lot. It's not going to be an astronomical number. And I think that is one thing you need to think about. How much silver really is there if people really do start to wake up and start to stack real money like gold and silver? I don't think there's going to be enough. What do you think? I don't know. That's just my thoughts for the day. I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts. If you did, do me a favor, leave a like. Make sure you leave a comment and make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'm going to throw a video up above me, by the way. If you haven't seen it yet, you should go watch this. I actually called coin shops all over the place and tried to see what they're selling silver for today with these massive premiums. Check it out. We'll see you next time.